All right, let's now look at some legal aspects that might actually come to play in this election. The big question, of course, is can the courts have any role in this election, and what are the grounds for the courts to get involved? Now, Donald Trump has quite clearly said that this will be a legal battle, that he'll fight it out. Now, it is not clear as to what shape this electoral battle will take in the courts when it, of course, heads to the courts. If it will be decided by the Supreme Court of the United States, it's still, the legal issues of this are pretty hard to predict. But the incumbent president of the United States of America has promised that he will, of course, be taking the battle to the courts, and that is where he may actually see some light in this election that is increasingly looking like which has slipped away and out of his hand.
We'll be going to the U.S. Supreme Court. We want all voting to stop.
Now, the voting must stop. That is what Donald Trump says. Now, he's referring, obviously, to the mail-in ballots that can be postmarked the 3rd of November. But even if they were to reach today, that is Friday, they'll still be accounted for and they'll still be counted in the state of Pennsylvania. Now, Trump's statement is essentially this: we want all voting to stop. It doesn't make sense because quite clearly the rules of the game were laid before. In any democracy in the world, the counting, of course, continues until the very last vote is cast. Now, the Supreme Court of the United States, what role will it be called into play? After this remarkable nomination and appointment of Amy Coney Barrett as the Justice of the Supreme Court, it's actually pretty easy to assume that President Trump's pick could take up the issue in the blink of an eye. This is a possibility. Will it happen? We don't know. But again, it is the top court of the country that we are talking about. In the United States, unlike it may happen in some other nations, institutions such as the courts have not crumbled under political pressure. By and large, the courts have been fair in the manner in which they have decided on cases. The Supreme Court decides actual disputes and not abstract propositions, and only after lower courts have made their rulings about a particular case. While there have been countless election cases that have been filed around the nation, it is not clear as to which of them might actually reach the Supreme Court. And also there is one clear distinction. Now, in India, you have a single unified judiciary, but in the United States, it's slightly different and a bit more complicated. Laws that are made in the state essentially are decided by the courts in the states. The federal court does not decide on certain laws that are made within the state. Will the Supreme Court have jurisdiction on some of the questions that Donald Trump will raise is still something that hangs up in the balance. The president is already in the court's docket. Last month, the court refused to put a case from Pennsylvania on a fast track, but 3 justices indicated that the court might return to it later if there was a need for it. As far as voting is concerned, it stopped on election day, but some states allow votes cast by mail on or before the election day to be counted if they are received up unto several days afterwards. In Pennsylvania, for instance, the state has extended the deadline for receiving ballots from election day to 3 days later. And late last month, the justices refused a plea from the Republicans in the state to fast-track the decision on the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. It's also important to note that Justice Amy Coney Barrett, who joined the court on the 27th of October, did not take part in the decision not to fast-track the case. The question, of course, then shifts to if the votes in Pennsylvania have the potential to determine the outcome of the Electoral College, and if those late-arriving ballots have the potential to swing the state. Those are, of course, 2 very big ifs. But here we need to point out that the votes of the state of Pennsylvania may not even come into picture. Joe Biden could win the election without the Electoral College votes of Pennsylvania.